When her millionaire husband insulted her at the Christmas party, she did something shocking. It was a night shimmering with sequins and laughter, but beneath the twinkling lights, a storm brewed. Desiree stood at the edge of the grand ballroom, feeling the weight of her husband's gaze like a brick on her chest. The chandeliers flickered, casting eerie shadows on the faces of the elite, all smiling, all oblivious to the brewing chaos. Her heart raced when she heard it. The cutting words that sliced through the festive air, directed right at her. "You really think you can pull that off? For Christ's sake, Desiree, you look like you stumbled out of a bargain bin." Gasps echoed around the room, eyes darted, whispers ignited. The tension hung thick, as palpable as the scent of cinnamon and pine. She clenched her fists, nails digging into soft flesh. What had she ever done to deserve this? In that moment, she felt a flicker of something deep within: fury, pain, rejection. Her cheeks burned hotter than the candles dotting the tables. She thought of every late night alone, every moment he took her love for granted. She had worn that beautiful red dress for him, believing it would ignite something special between them. Instead, it ignited the crowd's interest in their dirty laundry. Then, as if the universe conspired, something unusual happened. A sudden chill swept through the room, a collective shiver passed over the guests. The lights flickered, and the music stopped, plunging them into tense silence, as if every scene had paused for a moment to catch its breath. Desiree looked across the hall. Her eyes caught the gaze of the woman standing beside his boss, someone who had always been an unspoken rival. The twinkle in her eye wasn't innocent, it was knowingly malicious. Was she enjoying this? Would she relish the fallout? Just as the tension skyrocketed and the gossip began to swirl, she felt a shift inside. Heavy thoughts tangled like vines in her mind. She was done playing the victim. This wasn't just about him anymore, it was about her. Biting her lip, she summoned her confidence in a surge of adrenaline. What would she do? What line would she cross? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Desiree's breath came quick and shallow, adrenaline coursed through her veins like wildfire. A thought struck her, harsh and electric. She stepped forward, the heel of her stiletto click-clacking against the marble floor, drawing every eye in the room. She could feel the weight of anticipation crashing down like a tidal wave, as if the entire ballroom held its breath. The voices quieted. Every heart, in unison, seemed to echo the same question: what would she do next? The air thick with possibility, she steadied her gaze on her husband, a defiant sparkle in her eye, ready to deliver her shocking response. What would happen when she crossed that line? The crowd was about to find out. Desiree stood at the precipice of chaos, her heart like a drum pounding in her chest. With every step she took toward her husband, the crowd parted as if sensing the storm brewing. The spotlight was no longer on his cruel words, but squarely on her, the discarded wife poised to reclaim her narrative. "What's the matter, Daniel?" she called out, her voice slicing through the thick silence that had enveloped the room. "Afraid of what I might say next?" A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, eyes wide, drinks freezing mid-air. Desiree reveled in the shock painted across their faces. Daniel's cheeks flushed crimson, but his arrogance pushed through. "Desiree, this isn't the time, but it's exactly the right time." She shot back, her anger igniting once more. "You've had years to belittle me in private. It's time everyone sees you for who you really are." The murmurs crescendoed into a cacophony as guests exchanged glances, whispering excitedly. Desiree could hear snippets of their conversations. Did she really just say that? And finally, someone is standing up to him. As she approached him, the tension seemed to charge the air. She could feel the heaviness of their shared past weighed down by apologies never spoken and nights spent crying alone. But determination swelled within her, illuminating the dark corners of doubt. "You think this is about that dress?" she continued, her tone steady yet fraught with urgency. "It's about you. About how you made me feel worthless in the eyes of everyone who matters. You who pretended to love me while enveloped in the arms of your ego. Well, let me enlighten you, darling. I am not just your trophy wife." Each word resonated in the air, a challenge thrown that demanded his attention. Daniel's eyes narrowed, frustration morphing his features into a mask of anger. "You'll regret this, Desiree." "Regret?" She laughed, the sound ringing fresh and free. "You think I'm afraid of you?" "Not anymore. If you can tear me down in public, then I'll build myself back up before this entire gathering. Watch me." With unexpected boldness, she spun around, presenting herself to the crowd, every jaw dropped, every voice silenced. In that moment, Desiree felt that spark within her transform into a blazing inferno. She had become the protagonist of her own story, reclaiming the narrative right before their eyes. She held their gaze, unflinching, steady, then a glimmer of recognition flared in her mind. Across the room stood the woman beside Daniel's boss, her expression a mixture of awe and envy. It was the same woman who had often flaunted her supposed superiority, a beacon of shadowy competition. But tonight, that competitive edge had dulled. Desiree felt a rush of satisfaction, her empowerment disrupted the toxic cycle. Suddenly, the air shifted again as the lights flickered once more, the ballroom nearly plunged into darkness. Murmurs broke out, and Desiree's confidence wavered, just for a moment. What was happening? Panic drew tight across her chest. But it was too late to turn back now. Daniel's face was a portrait of rage, but the crowd was spellbound. She turned back to him, her eyes blazing. "Do you want to continue this charade, Daniel?" she asked, her voice steady. "Or will you let the world see the man you truly are?" Desiree's challenge echoed in the air, a palpable electricity that crackled around them. Everyone was poised, capacity for chaos lingering just beneath the surface. What was Daniel planning next? The question loomed heavy in the air. Might this Christmas party be remembered as her grand comeback or the stage for unexpected retribution? The tension set the scene for a reckoning that neither had anticipated. The lights flickered again, plunging parts of the ballroom into an eerie gloom. Chatter spiked, then fell silent as Desiree's heart raced. In that dim light, she could almost see the shadows of doubt creeping back into her thoughts, threatening to pull her under. But this was her moment. "Desiree, stop this." Daniel's voice cut through the tension, a desperate plea cloaked in anger. "You're making a scene." "Oh, I'm making a scene?" Desiree laughed again, this time bitterly. "Finally. How does it feel to be on the receiving end of the spotlight?" The crowd, who had once leaned in to watch the spectacle unfold, now hovered on the edge of their seats, anticipating his next move. "Enough," Daniel thundered, his fists clenching at his sides. "You think this is brave? You're just embarrassing yourself." A ripple of sympathy surged through her, mixed with disgust. Embarrassing herself? No. This was not embarrassment, this was liberation. For years, she had silenced herself for fear of his wrath, but not anymore. The murmurs in the crowd turned into words now, and she latched onto them like a lifeline. "What does he know about bravery?" someone whispered, and Desiree's spirits soared. "You can insult me, Daniel," she countered, her voice gaining strength. "You can bully me in private. But here right now everyone is witnessing the truth. And if anyone here thinks I'm the worthless one, let them remember your cruelty when the clock strikes midnight." With every word, she sharpened the stakes. The air crackled with a dramatic tension that could nearly be touched, like static before a thunderstorm. She could feel eyes upon her, suspicion and admiration swirled together. A moment ago, they saw her as the discarded wife. Now she was practicing the art of emotional alchemy, transforming pain into power. "And what do you hope to gain, Desiree?" Daniel sneered, the facade cracking even further as the cavalcade of guests whispered and observed. "Oh, I don't know, Daniel. Maybe I'll gain respect," she shot back, punctuating her words with unwavering intensity. "Or perhaps I'll take joy in becoming the woman I've always wanted to be. Maybe I'll be even more than that." As she took a step forward, the flicker of the lights created a dizzying effect, momentarily revealing three figures: herself, Daniel, and the woman beside his boss. The woman's face was now a blend of shock and something else. Was it fear? Was it recognition? Then just as quickly as the light danced, it flickered out again. This time, darkness swallowed them whole. Gasps echoed like crackling fireworks, punctuated by the faint sounds of rustling dresses and clinking glasses. Adrenaline coursed through Desiree's veins. She could hear the whispered conversations, the excitement and curiosity driven by the unseen chaos. She was both the spark and the tinder, her decisions igniting a blaze of uncertainty around them. "Desiree." Daniel's voice came forth, now layered with desperation. "Don't do this," but Desiree was no longer listening. The more Daniel tried to choke the words out of her, the more empowered she felt. She was ready to rise from the ashes of their shared history. From the darkness, a piercing scream cut through the cold air, drawing everyone's attention. The lights flickered back on, revealing chaos erupting on the far side of the room: a falling Christmas tree, ornaments scattering like shrapnel. What did it all mean? Was it just an unfortunate accident, or something far more sinister? Panic swirled within her as she wondered if her battle with Daniel was merely the prelude to a far greater confrontation that lay hidden in the shadows. What had she unleashed? Desiree's breath hitched as the light illuminated the wreckage. The crowd surged like a tidal wave, drawn towards the chaos. She felt their energy, a wild blend of shock and morbid curiosity, but still, her focus remained on Daniel, whose face was twisted in a mix of anger and confusion. "What a mess," someone murmured, and the sentiment echoed through the crowd. The glances that flitted toward Desiree carried a weight she had never encountered before, a recognition of her struggle marked in their stares. "Step away from her," Daniel barked, stepping forward to shield her from prying eyes. "This is all just theatrics." His voice dripped with desperation, but it only fueled the fire within her. She was no longer the woman who cowered under his intimidating glare. The gravity of the moment pulled her closer to the edge of her resolve. In the distance, a sob broke through the tension. The woman beside Daniel, the one who had looked like a deer caught in headlights, was now openly crying, her hands trembling as she clutched a shattered ornament, a tiny star barely intact. Recognition washed over Desiree, and for a fleeting moment, pity clouded her thoughts. Did the woman know something? Did she share in the pain of the lies? "Wow, maybe the spectacle is just starting," someone chuckled nervously, and a ripple of laughter spread, but it sounded hollow, fraying at the edges. Desiree locked eyes with Daniel, and the world around them blurred into a backdrop of noise and movement. "This isn't just a show, Daniel," she said, her voice low and fierce. "Your world is cracking at the seams, and I'm finally ready to tug at that thread." His look shifted from anger to outright fear, as if the foundations of his carefully constructed domain were trembling under an unseen threat. "You really want to make this harder?" His voice slithered, a snake ready to bite. "Harder?" She scoffed. "You've made it hell. Now it's my turn to fight back." As if on cue, another scream erupted, piercing the air like a bullet. The lights flickered again, longer this time, emphasizing the sense of something about to break. A figure stumbled out from the shadows, a man, gripping his arm that flowed with crimson. Gasps turned into frantic chatter. "What is happening?" "Mason!" The woman beside Daniel shrieked, rushing to aid him. Desiree's heart raced. Mason? Who was he? Her mind reeled, floating in a sea of panic. She watched as the chaos unfolded. The women in the crowd moved to cover their mouths in disbelief while the men rushed to assist him. Get him out of here. Daniel yelled, his composure unraveling. It was panic. She could feel it. Desiree's grip on her emotions began to slip. Was this the consequence of her awakening? Was this chaos meant to silence her rebellion? Suddenly, lights crashed again, and right before their eyes, the chandelier trembled, threatening to plunge toward the chaos below. Her thoughts raced with the desperate implications. Desiree. The urgency in Daniel's voice rose again, but she felt a thrill instead of fear, the taste of defiance almost sweet on her tongue. In the frenzy, she caught a glimpse of that woman, the one who had looked in shock at her. The glimmer of recognition had returned, mixed now with something menacing. A subtle smile, maybe? The lights dimmed once more, and it was as if destiny itself was orchestrating a grand finale. Deep down, Desiree knew, what did this night signify? Was it merely a party gone wrong, or the emergence of a truth that would shatter them all? Just as a soft light flickered back to life, illuminating the whispers and gasps, the chandelier began to descend. And then came the echo, "This is just the beginning." What had really been set in motion? The chandelier swayed, its crystal glints dancing dangerously in the dim light, casting jagged shadows across the frantic crowd. Desiree's heart pounded in sync with the thumping silence that blanketed the room. Every eye was riveted to the descending fixture, a collective breath held tight, like an unspoken prayer. "Mason, stay with us." A voice pierced the air, desperate. It was the woman, clutching Mason's limp body, tears streaking her makeup. The flicker of sheer panic in her eyes mirrored Desiree's own fear, a fear that twisted with the exhilaration of revelation. Why isn't anyone doing anything? Desiree thought, her skin prickling as she took a step back, her instincts urging her to get out of the way. But she couldn't. Not now. Daniel's voice broke through the chaos, rising to a fever pitch. "Someone call 911. He barked, but everyone seemed frozen, caught in a web of shock and disbelief. The gravity of Mason's injury had splattered a new layer of dread across the room. Desiree tried to pull her gaze away from Daniel, but his eyes bore into her, demanding her attention like an anchor. "You need to leave," he shot at her, the desperation sharp enough to cut. For an instant, it was like the world around them melted away. No thudding heartbeats. No sobbing woman. Just the intensity of his command. "No." She felt the words explode from her chest. "Not until I understand what this is really about." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the hall. The chandelier's descent halted abruptly, hanging midair as if momentarily paralyzed, then swung dangerously to the side, threatening to demolish the space entirely. Gasps filled the air, panic bubbling like boiling water. The woman yelled again, "Mason! Someone help!" But the words fell heavy in the thick atmosphere, sinking beneath the wave of fear. Desiree's thoughts raced. They were also caught up in the drama, in this chaos of flesh and pain, and yet, the real horror, whatever danger lurked behind it, was still lurking in the shadows. She felt it, a predatory gaze, cold and calculating. Was it Daniel? The woman? Or something darker hidden in the rooms beyond? Amidst the tumult, she turned back to Daniel. "What did you do?" she whispered, barely able to formulate the words. Anxiety knotted in her stomach, twisting and tightening. His face twisted in anger, quickly morphing into something else, defensiveness. "This is getting out of control," he shouted, but she saw through the bravado. There was a tremor in his hands. The crowd behind them surged, a collective animal instinct, pushing forward. Adrenaline ripped through Desiree. It was now or never. "You've been orchestrating this all along, haven't you?" she accused, voice rising, undeniable fury shaking her core. Daniel's jaw clenched. For a second, it was as if he would finally admit the truth, but before she could catch a hint of that revelation, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into deeper darkness. Panic erupted again, screams mixed with shouts of confusion. Someone tripped, falling hard to the ground. "Get out of my way!" a man yelled, shoving past Daniel. Desiree felt the weight of uncertainty creeping back in. She knew she should retreat, step out, flee into safety, but she couldn't tear herself away from this pivotal moment. The pulsating fear of the crowd, the nearness of the desperate woman cradling Mason, the shadows that whispered of danger, it all converged, urging her to pierce deeper into the heart of this chaos. Then she saw him, a figure emerging from the deep shadows. His silhouette danced with menace. Could it be the one behind everything? Now, he crooned, voice smooth as silk, sending chills up her spine. What a lovely mess we have here. Desiree's breath caught. This was it. The final piece of the puzzle was about to reveal itself. What diabolical game was he playing? Who was he? And what would his next move be? Desiree clutched her chest, heart racing like a wild drumbeat. The figure standing before her felt wrong, a dark shadow that somehow soaked up the light in the room. His smile twisted into something predatory, and for an instant, she felt like prey. Who are you? She managed to choke out, forcing the words through the surreal atmosphere. Ah, a curious little one, aren't you? His voice dripped with mockery. Names don't matter in a game, dear. What matters is the stakes. And right now, they're higher than ever. The crowd swirled in and out of her awareness, frenzied fingers clutching phones, calling for help. It was chaos, but all she could see was this man, a specter conjured from the darkest corners. Mason needs help. The woman shrieked, her hands trembling over his seemingly lifeless body. Help? The stranger chuckled, leaning closer, the flickering lights glinting off his perfectly tailored suit. Help is overrated, don't you think? You see, my dear, sometimes what you think you want is not at all what you need. Desiree's stomach twisted. Was he enjoying this? She wanted to scream, wanted to flee, but she was paralyzed by a mix of fear and burning curiosity. Who was this man? And how was he connected to what just happened? Stop messing around. Daniel roared, pushing past her. His composure was shattering, the bravado crumbling like dry clay. This isn't a game. Get out of here. The man turned his attention to Daniel, considering him as if he were merely a pawn on a chessboard. Game? Oh, this is very much a game, my friend. One that you helped orchestrate. Didn't you figure that out? You laid the groundwork beautifully. What are you talking about? Desiree shot back, her voice edged with incredulity. You think this is some twisted charade? Twisted? Perhaps. But charade? Oh no, my dear. This is as real as it gets. Consider it a demonstration of consequence, a moment to test loyalty, love and truth. The chandelier let out a low groan overhead, as if echoing their mounting tension. Desiree craned her neck, heart heavy with dread. Its precarious position reminded her just how fragile everything was, how quickly everything could come crashing down. Get back! A voice roared from the throng, but it only felt like a whisper against the tide of rising terror. The figure took a step closer, eyes glinting with malice. And what will you do, Desiree? Will you dive deeper into this tangled mess or find a way to escape before you're consumed? Leave her out of this. Daniel blurted, desperation lacing his voice. But the stranger's focus was locked on her, as if she were the only piece on a board that mattered. Ah, but you see, he continued, ignoring Daniel's plea, she's a key player. The pawn that could become a queen if she learns how to wield her power. Desiree clenched her fists, battling back the confusion swirling in her mind. What power? You clearly have a twisted view of this whole situation. He grinned, a sly, dangerous smile. You misunderstand. Power isn't always about brute strength. It's sometimes about what you're willing to sacrifice or who. Suddenly, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, spiraling up into the chaos, piercing the undercurrent of panic. The figure turned his head, as if considering his next move, and in that moment, they were suspended in a tense standoff where volatility hung thick in the air. Every action has a reaction, he mused, glancing back at her. And soon, you'll be faced with a choice. Make it wisely. As he stepped back into the shadows, the lights danced dangerously overhead again, the eerie calm settling briefly before chaos reigned once more. Desiree felt the world swirling, the edges of her reality blurring. What would she choose? The sirens grew louder, but the stranger's chilling smile was still etched in her mind. What had he meant? And even more daunting, who would be left standing when the dust settled? Desiree's heart raced as the shadows of the room seemed to coil tighter around her. The sirens wailed closer, a frantic chorus that echoed her inner turmoil. Mason lay motionless, and the piercing shrieks mixed with gasps of horror. Each individual in the room appeared caught in a web of panic, their faces blurring into a mosaic of shock and fear. Is he dead? A voice called out, slicing through the chaos like a hot knife. It was soft yet stricken with dread. I don't know. Someone cried back, a tremor lacing their words. Desiree clutched the edge of the table, forcing her breath to calm down, but the pounding in her chest threatened to drown her. Just call 911. Desiree shouted, her voice cutting through the tumult. As the crowd dispersed and voices rose, she caught a glimpse of Daniel, desperately attempting to rouse Mason. His hands trembled, frantic. The air had thickened, suffocating. Everything was fine before, Daniel muttered, shaking with barely suppressed fury. This can't be happening. Focus. She snapped, her voice sharper than intended. We need to do something. Yet even as she said it, the looming figure returned to her mind, the predator with his slithering words. How did he know about their lives? What did he mean by a game, by sacrifice? Suddenly, the man's voice boomed again, causing everyone to halt. You're all wasting precious time. He taunted, stepping out from the shadows. Don't you see? The clock is ticking, and soon, truth will come calling. Daniel shot a furious glare toward the man, rage bubbling like a volcano ready to erupt. Shut up. You have nothing to do with this. Ah, but I do. The man's smile was chilling, filled with twisted pleasure. I'm merely the messenger. The harbinger of their secrets. You, Daniel, you're entangled deeper than you realize. What secrets? What do you know about us? Desiree demanded, her voice trembling, fighting against the weight pressing down on her. All in due time, dear. He gestured dramatically, the movement almost theatrical. The night is still young, and the pieces are still being set. Mason's fate, your choices, they're all part of the same sinister design. Mason. She screamed, her throat raw as reality sank in. We need to help him. But the man was unfazed, an immune spectator to her anguish. Your choices define your journey. Will you save him? Or will you allow the truths hidden in darkness to surface? The longer you wait, the more twisted the threads become. Stop it. Daniel's voice cracked. You don't know, but I do, Daniel. You've spun a web of lies and they will unravel tonight. He stepped closer, a predator sniffing the air. You, my dear, hold the key. Choose wisely, or risk everything, including those you love. Chaos blossomed anew as another shout echoed from the crowd. The paramedics had arrived, flashing lights spilling into the space like liquid electricity. Desiree felt a flicker of hope alongside the ever-present dread knotting her stomach. Over here! She yelled, rushing to where Mason lay. But as she drew closer, she felt the eyes of the figure upon her, those cold, calculating eyes watching her every move. He was still there, a ghostly reminder of the danger lurking just outside her doors. Time is a fickle friend, he called softly, his lips curved in that sinister grin. Will your next choice be the right one? Desiree knelt beside Mason, her fingers brushing against his skin, where warmth lingered but life felt missing. Brain racing, she wondered, what was she willing to sacrifice to maintain the fragile thread of hope? The crowd began to part around her, the paramedics moving in with urgency. Yet the figure's words echoed on, relentless. Remember, Desiree, the game is still afoot. And in this game, the stakes are far too high for you to ignore. With a final glance at his smirking face, she turned back to Mason, heart pounding with the weight of impending decisions. As the world spun around her, she whispered a vow to herself, whatever it took, she would confront the darkness hiding within their lives. But would the truth set her free, or shatter everything she held dear? Desiree's focus on Mason wavered, reality blurring around her. The paramedics worked quickly, but the sirens still played a melody of urgency in the background. She felt the cold presence of the figure lingering like a dark cloud, taunting her from the edge of the chaos. "Stay with me, Mason," she whispered, her voice breaking. She nestled against his shoulder as if her warmth could reach him. She could hear the paramedics yelling commands, but those sounds faded, becoming distant. Her world became a tunnel of fear, narrowing around Mason's pale face. "Is he breathing?" one of the paramedics shouted, bringing her back. Desiree leaned closer, searching for any hint of life, her pulse racing alongside the frantic movements of the emergency crew. I think so," she stammered, desperation creeping into every syllable. She could feel the weight of the dark figure's gaze, pressing on her, reminding her of the whispers hanging in the air. The stakes were higher than she could comprehend. The man outside the circle of light stepped back, fading into the shadows, but his voice echoed all around her. "Choose wisely, my dear. The truth will come for you, sooner than you think." "Shut up." Daniel's voice boomed, cutting through the thick air. "You don't have a right to stand there. This isn't your show." He was a fierce protector, hurling himself against the darkness. Desiree turned, seeing the smirk widening on the man's face. Her stomach soured at the sight. What did he know? Did he watch them, scheme from the sidelines? The notion sent chills down her spine. "Mason," she called, half a plea, half a challenge to the universe. If she could summon him back, even with her voice, maybe it would matter. Suddenly, a gasp disrupted the medic's tension. "His pulse, it's faint." The paramedic's voice quivered, unleashing a new wave of panic. The others sprang into action, voices raised in commands. Desiree's eyes darted around, looking for something, anything that could help. She locked eyes with Daniel. His expression mirrored her fear, but his determination was fire. "We can't let him die," she breathed. But then, everything shifted. The figure, still lurking, grinned from the shadows. "Oh, but life and death aren't the only games at play tonight, my dear. What do you want?" Desiree shouted, the anger rising within her. How could he find joy in their suffering? "Only to see how far you're willing to go to save the ones you love," he answered coolly. "Ask yourself, how far are you willing to stray into the darkness?" His eyes glinted, unsettling in the chaos. Mason stirred slightly, a grimace crossing his face as the paramedics worked feverishly. "Come on, buddy," Desiree urged, tears stinging her vision. "You're strong. Fight. Please, fight." But amidst her pleas, a chilling thought crept into her mind. What if the truth lurking beneath everything was darker than she could bear? What if they weren't just fighting for Mason's life but for their own souls? Caught in this spiraling chaos, she remembered the man's words. Every choice mattered. Each decision could lead them further into the game. He spoke of a game she feared more than anything. "Please, let us save him." Her voice trembled, as her gaze flitted back to the shadows. "We'll do whatever you want." "Ah, but what will whatever look like when the costs are revealed?" He chuckled, his laughter echoing across the trembling air, scattering her resolve like dust in the wind. "Desiree." Daniel called urgently. "Focus. On Mason. We have to believe he'll make it." But could she? Could she keep believing when the darkness wrapped around her like a suffocating cloak? As the paramedics worked tirelessly, one of them looked up, tension etched on his face. "We need to shock him. Get the paddles." Desiree's heart dropped. This was a turning point, but would it lead to salvation, or was it another step toward doom? And who would pay the price for this desperate gamble? Behind her, the figure stood, waiting, eyes locked on Desiree. Would she unravel the truth when she had the chance, or plunge deeper into the abyss? As the paddles sparked to life, a flicker of hope wrestled with the shadow of truth. The moment was here, yet all she could do was hold her breath, waiting for the next move in a game that had only just begun. The air crackled with tension as the paramedic gripped the paddles tightly, his eyes steady on Mason. Desiree held her breath, her heart racing with the rhythm of unspoken prayers. Time suspended around them, a fragile thread, stretching taut, ready to snap. Clear, came the command, loud and firm. The crowd watched, hushed, their breaths collective. Desiree couldn't tear her eyes away from Mason's still body, trapped in this fragile limbo between life and death. The electric shock coursed through him, a violent jolt. Mason's body arched against the ground, and she gasped, her heart surging with hope and fear entwined. "Come on, come on," she whispered over and over, as if her words could will him back. For an impossible moment, silence reigned. And then, Mason's eyelids fluttered, his face contorting in pain. He opened his eyes, but they were unfocused, glimmering with confusion. "Desiree," he murmured weakly, relief washed over her like a balm, but it was wet with anxiety. "I'm right here, Mason. Just keep fighting." Tears streamed silently down her cheeks, tainted with nagging uncertainty of what lay ahead. If only the truth about the figure lurking in the shadows could be banished as easily as her fears for Mason's life. "Incredible," one of the paramedics muttered, moving fast to check Mason's vital signs. The chaos around them faded, leaving only Mason's labored breathing and the sound of air escaping Desiree's lungs, but just as she felt hope begin to take root, the shadowy figure stepped forward, re-emerging from the darkness that clung to the edges of the scene. Desiree's stomach twisted. "You promised me a game," he said, his voice smooth as silk, insinuating himself back into her mind. "And you've only made the first play. Will you keep playing, or will you fold? Get away from us," Daniel shouted, his fists clenched as he stepped protectively in front of her. The figure's gaze darted between them, amusement glinting in his eyes. "Ah, such zeal. But remember, it's not just Mason's life at stake now." His smile widened. "The choices you make will ripple, my dear. Are you ready to embrace the cost of your actions?" Desiree felt the weight of his words like a stone in her chest. Her mind raced. What did he want? What was the cost? Surely this couldn't be just about Mason's survival. The darkness had its claws in them, and those shadows whispered truths so horrifying that she couldn't bear to face them. "Mason needs us, not you," Desiree shot back, desperate to maintain her hold on hope. "We'll do whatever it takes. Just leave us in peace." "Whatever it takes," he echoed, almost reflecting her desperation. "Be careful what you wish for, my dear. Be careful who you trust. The line between ally and enemy is thin." Mason's breath steadied even as the darkness curled around them like smoke. "Desiree," he mumbled, trying to sit up, oblivious to the tension tightening in the air. "What happened?" Just rest. You're safe now." She wanted to shield him from the ominous figure, but the truth pricked at her consciousness like thorns. "Safe?" The figure laughed, the sound ringing mockingly through the chaos. "That's what you think. Safety is an illusion, and it comes at a price." The paramedic continued his checks, and a collective breath held by onlookers finally broke as Mason's color began to return. Desiree could see sparks of life in his eyes, but the figure's words hung heavy in her mind. "Choose wisely," he whispered again, fading back into darkness, leaving a shiver in his wake. The sirens screamed back to life, a chilling reminder of their fragile reality, but Mason's eyes focused on her now, lifting his hand slightly. "Desiree. I'm scared." Everything felt too fragile, as if the next moment could shatter everything she wished for. What sacrifices would she have to make to keep them safe? The weight pressed harder, and doubt tainted the triumph she felt. As Mason struggled to rise, Desiree felt the pull of the dark figure's warning echoing in her mind. Would the price be worth it, even if it threatened to tear them apart? In that charged moment, desire and dread collided, and she realized one horrifying truth: the game was just beginning, and she had yet to uncover the depths of her own courage. But how far was she willing to go to safeguard the ones she loved? The choice hung heavy in the air, waiting for her next move. And the figure's smirk lingered in the corners of her mind as she faced the unknown. What would she sacrifice next? Desiree knelt beside Mason, her heart racing as the paramedics continued their work. Each breath he took filled her with desperation and hope, but the shadow of the figure, lurking beyond, weighed heavily on her mind. It was all too much. She had pledged to save him, but would that come at a price far more sinister than she ever imagined? "Mason, you're going to be okay," she whispered, her words trembling. He blinked up at her, uncertainty swirling in his unfocused gaze. "Did I mess up, again?" His voice was weak, but there was still a flicker of that familiar spark inside him. It ignited something in Desiree, a fierce determination to fight for not just Mason, but for herself, too. "No, you just hang in there, okay? Just trust me." Her voice was firm, yet the unease in her chest clenched tight. The face of the figure, with its taunting grin, danced at the edges of her thoughts. She couldn't shake it. What were the depths of this game? The paramedics pressed on, and Mason's color returned while the ice of fear began to thaw inside her. "I'm not going to let you down again," she vowed softly. The figure stepped back into her mind, a whisper. "Isn't it always about what you're willing to sacrifice? Mason needs you, not another mind game." Desiree shot back, her voice firm enough to push back the sigh of doubt. Suddenly, Daniel took a step forward, adrenaline-fueled and fierce. "Mason, you stay with us. You're stronger than this." Mason managed a faint nod, hope threading through the chaos, even as the urgent sounds of sirens and desperate shouts flickered in the air. "Desiree, he murmured, but his eyes flickered closed once more. "Mason." A frightened voice pulled her attention. It was the woman, still bent over her friend, panic etching her features beyond recognition. "Someone's got to help him, he needs." Desiree felt a rush of anger sparking within her. No more. No more cowering. She pushed herself to her feet and spun around, heart racing. "Everyone. We need to clear a path. Let them do their jobs." As she raised her voice, the chaos around her began to settle. The crowd, initially mesmerized by the tension, shifted to allow the paramedics room. "Clear," came the command again. "Get back." She watched as one of them brought forth a defibrillator and prepared to shock Mason again. Desiree's pulse quickened. This moment would decide everything. It would either restore the spark of life or plunge them deeper into darkness. It was time. This was not just about Mason, this was about her reclaiming her life and her choices. And perhaps, with a sense of belonging, she could reclaim more than just that. "Desiree," came Daniel's low voice beside her, protective yet unsure. "You need to focus, don't let him get in your head." She turned, their collective gazes locked momentarily, the gravity of their shared history pulling tight. There was still something fragile between them, but anger had come to wear away years of neglect. "I'm not going to back down, Daniel. Not anymore. Not for you or anyone." He opened his mouth to argue, but the medics called out. "We're going again. Ready? Clear." Desiree's breath caught, she held it, perched on the edge of hope. The shock delivered. Mason jolted, and the crowd collectively gasped. Come on," Desiree murmured, willing him to return. She could see the struggle, see the light fighting to break through the darkness. And then a blink, a flicker. "Mason. Please." She shouted, emotion spilling forth. And then it happened. His eyes fluttered back open, a deep breath escaping his lips. "Desiree. I'm here." The warmth spread out like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Just as relief washed over her, she felt the electrum pulse of the presence behind her, that shadowed figure simmering on the edges. "The game is just beginning," he whispered, his voice hissing like a snake. With newfound strength, Desiree squared her shoulders. "No," she shouted, the echo reverberating within all of them. "Not tonight." "What will that mean for your precious Mason?" he teased, but there was a waver of doubt, a flicker as if he noticed her resolve, her defiance. As the paramedics moved to stabilize Mason, Desiree marched toward the figure. "You think you can manipulate everything around here?" "Not anymore. The choices I make are mine, not yours." He smiled, slow and maddening. "We'll see how long you can hold on to that conviction." But he pulled back, his shadow receding. Desiree turned back to the crowd, heart racing, pulses roaring in her ears, hers and Mason's, the thrum of life raging. As the cacophony around her bloomed into sound and spirit, it hit her, she had flourished, even in despair. She could protect Mason, heal their wounds. And more importantly, stand firm against the darkness. "Whatever sacrifices come," she called out, loud enough to pierce through, "I will face them. With my own choices. For Mason, for strength, and for my truth." A cheer erupted, bolstering her confidence as if the crowd conspired in her favor. Desiree felt a weight lift. The shadows flickered, caught off guard by the surge of unity and spirit. The air shifted as the tension began to unravel. "Tonight, we stand together," she shouted, pulling them all in, each individual a thread woven into their collective strength. And through the eyes that filled with hope, even at the edge of chaos, she knew what she had to do. As the man's silhouette melded with the shadows around him, his fear twisted into something dark. But her eyes stayed locked on Mason, heart firm. Tonight, they would not sink into chaos unfettered. "Clear," echoed, and as the sirens faded, so did the last remnants of doubt. Desiree took a breath, standing strong. "Let this be our beginning. We choose our fate." And for the first time, her heart felt free, breaking the chains that had bound her. It was time to embrace the destiny she would carve, in love, in truth, and in strength. The battle would continue, but tonight they stood united, Mason, Daniel, and her. Nothing would eclipse that truth again. Before the darkness could entrap them, they stepped into the light together, resolved, unbroken, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And in that moment, she understood this indeed was just the beginning. Don't sit back. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is your moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild ending. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share.